I don't think there is a good argument for atheism.
Yeah.
What do you think? We're made in opposition to the spirit of the natural order? Is that your theory? Or we're random? Really? Random. That's your theory, is it? That's not a very smart theory.
Okay.
There's there's nothing random. There's some random mutation, and even that's not true.
Pints with Aquinas gets the chance to speak with Jordan Peterson, and he takes this opportunity to ask Peterson about the best arguments for atheism. To which Peterson responds by absolutely ripping into atheism for 11 minutes straight. I'm going to let this clip play out, and then I'm going to give my thoughts on the back end. Let's get into it.
What do you think the best argument for atheism is?
I don't think there is a good argument for atheism. I think it's based on a fundamental misunderstanding about the nature of the world. So it's just, it's what would you say? It's an illegal chess move.
Okay. Well,
it's based on the wrong...
This might just show that I don't understand you, but we'll get to it if I don't.
The best argument for atheism.
What's the best of the worst arguments?
Materialistic determinism is the best argument for atheism.
But isn't that a philosophical sort of assumption or axiom?
That's a problem.
Yeah. Like for me, I think it would be if this, and let's just choose the Christian God, if he exists and wants me to know him and save me, wouldn't he make it easier? Why does he make it so difficult? Why does he seem to hide? And
because you have something to do.
Okay.
You have something important to do. It's no game. The price of life is death. It's not a game, right? And there's evil too. You have something to do. It's not easy. In fact, it'll take everything you have. Everything. Right? That's why you're to consecrate everything to God. You're not an infant. But you're not being treated by God like an infant. You're being treated by God like someone
responsible moral agent. He doesn't just want comfortable little pets in his habitat,
someone to be made in the image of God is to be someone who wrestles with potential. To genuinely
wrestle with potential.
That's right. Well, that's the tohu vabohu that exists at the beginning of time. Right? The potential, the watery chaos.
Okay.
The Spirit of God sits above the chaos, the primordial chaos, and extracts order out of that. That's what you do as a conscious agent. And you do that. You do that in a way that is aimed towards hell or aimed towards heaven. Really.
But you wouldn't think people who claim to be atheists are necessarily irrational? Because
they're perfectly rational if you accept the initial axiom, but I don't accept the initial axiom.
What's the original?
Like I said, it's something like a materialist determinism.
Yeah.
No. First of all, whatever matter is, and we certainly don't understand it, it doesn't look at all like something deterministic at the highest level of resolution. Mm-hmm. There's something very weird going on down there at the quantum level, and what the philosophical implications of that are, God only knows. But there's no easy determinism in the physical realm. So anybody who claims that is like stuck in the world of Newton. They're like in 1830. We're way past that.
What if the person just says, all right, I'm open to believing in God or not believing in God, and I've seen no good evidence or arguments for God's existence?
It's like I said, it's an illegal game move. It has nothing to do with... See, the problem with that argument is that it's an atheist argument right from the beginning. Well, what's the evidence? It's like, belief in God is not propositional acceptance of a set of descriptive facts. That's not what it is. It's commitment, right? So what does it mean to follow in the footsteps of Christ? To believe. It means to hoist your goddamn cross and walk up the hill. It doesn't mean that you say, what does Christ say? Not all those who say, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. Yeah. Well, that's for sure.
Yeah.
What? It's not, the religious doctrine is not a scientific theory. It's not something you believe like you believe a description of a set of facts. Okay. It's a mode of being. It's a mode of apprehension. It's a mode of perception. It's a mode of action.
I'm pushing back to see if I can understand what you're getting at. Like, in order for me to marry my wife, I need to know she exists, and I need to know she's interested in me, and I need to be able to pursue her, right?
To marry your wife, you need to take a leap of faith.
But I need to know she exists first in order to...
Oh, true.
So that's what I'm saying with God's existence. If God does exist, surely I need some kind of reason to think this isn't just a story I'm telling myself.
Conscience. Where does that pesky little thing come from?
I think there's three options.
Okay.
One might be, we evolved this way.
That's fine. I'm perfectly happy with that
But here's my problem with that. Yeah, because if you say, okay, if we were raping and pillaging, we would have never gotten this far as a species. Therefore, these things have become taboo or something like that, which is a far cry from saying they're somehow objectively wrong or mind independently
I don't know. It's not
evil.
so far. It's not so far. No, I think the evolutionary biology and the religious will dovetail perfectly.
Well, okay, but then here's the thing:
God is the deepest instinct.
If I now know that it's evolution that's wired me thus, I can choose to disobey it. It's lower than me. I could be Raskolnikov, presumably. I can go against it.
Of course, that's
and another source would be individuals. Like you could tell me I'm a bad person to do X, Y, or Z, or praise me if I do other things, and I might feel good or feel bad. Or collectively as society, you can say this.
Yeah.
But just as you have no right, it seems to me, to determine how I ought to live, collectively, why would you have any more authority?
That's Raskolnikov's argument too.
So it seems
or the Marquis de Sade.
So this objective morality could come from beneath us in evolution, from outside of us on our level.
Yeah.
Maybe it comes from above us, and then it's like, okay, if it comes from above us, is it in some sort of Platonic form? And if it is a Platonic form, is there a commandment being issued? And why do I need to be obedient to a Platonic form?
So you don't end up in hell.
Right.
That's why.
Right. So I could, yeah.
No, but seriously, that's why.
I see.
It's like,
this is sort of like
violate the moral order and watch what happens. Go right ahead.
I'm with you. This is the sort of Aristotelian Nicomachean ethics idea, right? Where like eudaimonia is just flourishing. And so it's like there is a way to act.
You put yourself in alignment with the cosmic order.
Yeah, but I could choose not. Yeah, I could choose not to do that.
Sure,
which you can choose to go to hell. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And you might think, well, it'll be a fine ride on the way, and maybe it will, but that's where you're headed. So no, everything has to be put in proper order. That's why Christ says that he calls upon his followers to be perfect. Why? Because everything has to be put in the proper order. Why? Because otherwise it falls into disorder. It's like, is that good? Well, if you want disorder. But what are you going to do? You're going to heap burning coals of fire on your own head? Well, you can. That's hell. Every devil shoveling the burning coal on his own head. Right.
I'm still trying to get at this. All right, so what if I just say, all right, I can't believe in some invisible sugar daddy up in the... this is not what I think. Invisible sugar daddy up in the clouds who's going to give me a theme park if I just quit masturbating, all right? I can't believe that anymore. It just seems like it's bullshit and it's a fairy tale that people tell themselves.
Well, it is and it isn't. It's a concretized representation, but it's not without its wisdom. Like, there isn't anything more complex in the cosmos than a human psyche. And to think of the psyche, let's say the Father, as a representation of the highest spirit, it's not prima facie absurd. It's not a bad metaphor. So I'll give you an example of that. So imagine all the admirable men you've ever known.
Doing it now.
Okay. Well, they have a unity, right? It's the unity of whatever makes them admirable.
Yeah.
Right. So they all reflect the same spirit. Seriously. They're all approximations to the same spirit. Well, what's that spirit? Well, it's the God of Abraham. That's what it is. This is a definition.
Yeah, all right.
So God is the benevolence that shines through the good Father. It's a definition. Just like God is the call to adventure. Or just like God is conscience. And you think, well, that's not God. It's like, well, have it your way. Like, you're playing games. You're playing games.
But surely it's not playing a game to just be curious and say, okay, maybe there is no such being as God. Maybe Jesus wasn't the second person of the Blessed Trinity. Maybe heaven is a myth. And yet these stories help me flourish for some unknown reason. And so I'm best to go along with it. But it's hard to really get on board with something.
Well, you can't commit to that. No. Yeah. This is an all-in enterprise.
Okay.
It's an all-in enterprise. So in the story of Cain and Abel, for example, Abel offers his best. And God accepts it. And Cain doesn't. Cain offers what's second best. And God rejects it. And that's life. And everyone knows that. It's like life is a fatal game. And it's going to require everything you have. And everyone knows that. It's like you can offer your second best and be accepted? No. First of all, you won't even accept yourself under those circumstances because you'll take no pride in not pride, wrong word. You'll take no solace in your accomplishments if they're of second-rate quality.
Yeah.
Right? You can't
if
fool
you could
yourself.
Have done better, yeah.
That's for sure. And the times when you're somewhat satisfied with your miserable existence, well, that's when you know you've put something on the line. Right? And that's what you're called to do by your wife and by your children and by your community, by your conscience. Well, that's all a reflection of something real. And you might say, well, not transcendently real. It's like, well, why not?
Okay.
Why not transcendentally real?
Yeah.
What do you think? We're made in opposition to the spirit of the natural order? Is that your theory? Or we're random? Really? Random. That's your theory, is it? That's not a very smart theory.
Okay.
There's nothing. There's nothing random. There's some random mutation, and even that's not true. You know, there's a hierarchy of mutational repair.
No.
Yeah, well, this has been discovered quite recently. Mutation is random. No, turns out that's not true, because mutations that occur to genes that are crucial for survival are repaired with 100% accuracy. There's some room for experimentation out in the margins, but not at the center, just like in life itself. It's like, and whatever shaped us isn't random. The mutation process, part of it is random. And I suppose we capitalize on chance, but as an explanation for the nature of being itself, it's like no one knows how life arose. No one knows anything about consciousness.
Yeah.
Not the least. It's a
true.
byproduct of neural activity. It's why isn't your solar plexus conscious then?
Yeah.
Right? You've got neurons galore. There's more neurons in your autonomic nervous system than there are in your central nervous system. It's not conscious. It's not neural activity per se. And most neural activity in your cerebral cortex isn't conscious. What the hell is consciousness? It's the spirit of God that what would you say, broods upon the
face of the waters.
That's
baby.
right. That's what consciousness is.
Yeah.
That's as good a definition as any. In fact, it's the best definition I've ever seen.
Now, after watching this clip, one might accuse Jordan Peterson of committing the God of the gaps fallacy, which basically says we don't know how something is made or created, and saying therefore God did it just shows a lack in understanding. So when Jordan said we don't know what consciousness is or where it comes from, we don't know how the universe was created, therefore God, one might say. Now, I don't think that's exactly what Jordan Peterson is saying, because I do not think he's making an argument from ignorance, but one of positive evidence. For example, he says that the solar plexus we have is not conscious, that our other systems have more neurons, but they may not be conscious. So there are things that we can see that show that it's not just mere biological adaptations and outworkings that control our consciousness. Jordan Peterson also, in his response about our duty to the good, reflects an important biblical principle. In the Bible, in Hebrews, it says, "For this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, declares the Lord. I will put my laws into their minds and write them on their hearts, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people." So this passage is saying that the consciousness of God is implanted on our hearts, and that there are things that we do that we know are wrong. Our conscience condemns us, and it is up to us how we choose to respond to those things. Now, we can expand on this concept a little further by looking at a passage in the book of Romans. It says, "The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness of people, who suppress the truth by their wickedness, since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that the people are without excuse." And this is a principle that Jordan Peterson is touching on here, because he's saying, look at the complexity of mutation and of the world. And if you think it's all random, I mean, he essentially calls people fools for that. And I think that's pretty strong language, but I think he's pointing out something important here, that if we look around at the whole universe, the complexity of it, the precision of it, and the way that it's designed, it shows strong evidence of a creator. But that's only if you open your mind up to the possibility of there being a supernatural God. If you go in with the assumption that there is no God and that we are purely on a materialist determinism view, then of course you're not going to accept God no matter what, even if the evidence supports a God. And so Jordan Peterson points out that there is a presupposition there. And if you don't clear that out, then you're never going to find God. And Jesus said that if you deny him before man, he will deny you before his Father who is in heaven. And if that's the case, then you do not have a sacrifice for your sins, and you will go to hell. And I don't want you to go to hell. I mean, that place sucks. The Bible says there'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And so if you haven't put your trust in Jesus, now's the time to do it. Like 140,000 people die a day, and it does not discriminate against young versus old. So put your trust in Jesus today if you haven't already. But if that still sounds pretty far-fetched to you, I get it. I was an atheist for most of my life. I've only been Christian for a little over a year and a half now. So if you want to learn more about the evidence for God, maybe why the Bible is not been corrupted and it's reliable, check out this video on screen right about here. I think it could really help you. With that being said, have a great day, y'all. Bye-bye.